I think we're alone now, Ron. There doesn't seem to be anyone. Oh fuck! Oh shit! Uh, sorry. I'm Clive Finney, and
I love to.
I didn't
Are
realize
you
we
are you
had another
Tiffany?
person here, Ron. He's Ron.
Yes,
I'm Clive Finney, and this imposter. Who's that?
that's Nick, your old friend Nick.
Yes. Knock next time, motherfucker.
Sorry, I'll do that. Yeah, I
Hey,
do.
cooler
So,
with the swearing, man.
yeah, I do have. Yeah, dude, that's not appropriate.
That's not
Um,
appropriate.
Okay,
no, I do actually
motherfucker.
get. I do get accused of like I have very quiet shoes, and so I often seem to end up walking into the photocopy room at work and stuff like that, and then people kind of jump because they're not aware that I'm standing right behind them. So
You have
I,
quiet shoes as opposed to everyone else who has loud shoes.
I'm guessing everyone else must have really loud
What are
shoes. That
quiet shoes? Are you talking sneakers or because that's why they call sneakers?
no, they have that nice pair of like oh shit, what are they? They're like Skechers, like a nice pair of comfortable, work, leather shoes, but they're soft and they've got
But
Also
does
known
everyone
as
else have like shoes
stalkers,
with like
right?
a little
The
drum attached
stocking
to them?
shoes.
that's them. Yes,
They're
they're
good
perfect.
for stocking.
That's how they sell them. They're like, yes, you want to walk up quietly behind people without them knowing. These are
Yo, what shoes are good for stocking, yo? Give me some good stocking shoes.
Oh, you need sketchy Skechers for sure.
But everyone else in your work has like shoes with like crushing symbols
Yeah,
attached to them.
they all wear jester shoes, Clive. They've got like these bells on
With
the
like
end.
little bells on it.
Yes.
Yes,
I keep forgetting, of course, you work at the circus.
I do. I
It
do.
actually, that's not far off from where we work. Yeah.
No. But anyway, but yes. So yeah. Hi everyone. I'm here for today's adventure.
Hi, Nick.
So
Welcome.
I'm
Can't
always
really
interested.
remember why, but you're here. Was
I
there a
think
reason?
maybe because I was invited to the other show where we're going to talk about Michigan horror
Yes.
Oh,
films, and
that's right.
so
Yes, and then our next show we're going to be recording at the same time, lined up. So we thought, ah, fuck it, it's going to be
yeah,
annoying just
why
trying to get
not?
timing right. So
Right.
let's have that
Yeah. And
fellow with the
didn't you
quiet
say you
shoes.
liked Oh Lucky Man? Didn't you say you're a fan of it?
Yeah. So I'm
Yeah. I think
interested
that
in
was another
talking
reason
about
why.
it anyway.
Yeah.
But I'm always interested to know what's the connective tissue between what you've done, like how you've come to the choices you've made. And so, Oh Lucky Man is coming off of the back
Well,
of
don't ask Ron because he never remembers anything.
okay,
No,
all
I
right,
remember. I
right.
remember this
Oh,
one
okay.
because it's about it's as tenuous as a link as I could possibly get.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Or
right.
we,
So the last time
I
was,
want to know.
well, not with you,
yeah.
Nick. The last time you were on, or you were
Yeah.
with us, and you talked Alfie.
Yes.
In the interim, he chose Dirty
Oh,
Rotten
right.
Scoundrels, and
Yeah.
Hmm.
my choice was Alfie Darling.
Yeah.
Right.
And then going
And
off of
then
Alfie Darling,
yeah, because
my
Elfie Darling had that real dark twist ending, if you remember.
I
Yeah, I haven't
remember,
seen
I
it
don't
yet.
think Nick
Yeah, oh,
has.
you haven't seen it. Okay, yeah. So
I'm kind of
basically,
interested.
spoiler.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it's basically like a kind of a light, frothy rom-com,
Hmm.
kind of the whole thing. And then at the very end, she dies in a plane crash. I think at the last 2 minutes of the movie. So, and
Yeah,
Wow.
he's like walking amongst the wreckage of this plane crash and like thinking of her as at the end. It's like yeah, it's real. Like gets just
yeah.
on a dime, turns
It's the
dark.
most interesting thing about the film. And thanks to
Yeah.
Gav Crimson of this parish as well
Hmm.
for cluing me into. So I wasn't aware of this. So the American cut of Alfie Darling, known as Oh Alfie,
Hmm.
uh, totally cut that bit out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it
Or
just
even
ends
better,
on a happy note.
even better, begins, it's like To Be 20, begins
Yes,
with scene and then
yeah,
goes
except
on
it
for the
doesn't
rest of the movie.
re-edit
Is
it.
him
Yeah,
having a
yeah,
romp
yeah.
after getting over the death of
Yeah,
his, yeah.
but I think Gav Crimson was quite hello Gav. He was quite surprised as well, maybe that there was this
Oh,
dark
speaking
ending.
of viewers, I did happen to notice just before we logged on today that I think today is Gino's birthday. So happy birthday,
Yes,
Gino.
happy birthday,
Okay.
Gino.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Gino.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
But
Anyway, so the connective tissue was movies that start off in one genre and then quickly change dark. Yeah.
okay.
yes, for
Yeah.
on.
Okay.
Mine
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
just more Alan Price.
Yes, okay, that's
Yeah.
what I think, because Alan Price, of course,
So which
he
is
plays
Oh Lucky
Alfie,
Man.
right? Yes,
Yes,
okay,
yes.
that makes sense. Yeah.
And this will amuse you, I think, Nick.
Mhm.
Now that you, so I was, when I was watching Alfie Darling, I was watching the whole thing, and I was like, who does Alan Price remind me of? Like, who does
Mhm.
he visually? And you
Mhm.
get a kick out of this because I think you will kind of make after watching this. Doesn't he a lot look like Ardler Hanlon as Dougal in Father Ted? He has
Yeah.
that
Yes.
totally gormless look
Yes.
on his face.
Yes, you're
He
right.
really does look like Father Dougal Maguire,
Hmm.
which adds an extra kind of
Hmm. Yeah, yeah.
level of enjoyment. So, yeah, so we're kicking off with Oh Lucky Man,
Hmm.
73, all 3 hours of it.
Yes, yes. This is
Yeah.
my third viewing of this film, but
Wow.
it had been a long, long time. Like
Same here, oddly enough. Yeah.
not since my early 20s, I think that was the last time I saw this.
So,
Um,
kind of the middle sequence of a trilogy of sorts, the Mick Travis trilogy, right?
which I've never seen Britannia Hospital for some reason. So that and this made me think that I should have finally see the end. Although I know it gets very mixed reviews, but I'm kind of
Well,
interested to.
yeah, so there's If in 68, and
Mhm.
they all star Malcolm McDowell. So If the origin is the film that made Malcolm McDowell a star, really,
Yes.
pre-Clockwork Orange. And then you get this, and then Britannia Hospital in there. My advice for watching Britannia Hospital is don't watch it with Oh Lucky Man in living memory.
Okay.
So wait a bit.
Okay.
Because I think Britannia Hospital is not without merit, but it can't hold a candle to
Mhm.
If or Lucky Man. But there's interesting stuff in it,
Yeah.
including Mark Hamill tripping on acid and laughing at battery chickens.
Yes, I did. I did. Yeah, I'm interested in seeing Mark Hamill outside of the Star Wars thing, especially in a movie directed by Lindsay Anderson.
Well, clearly he
Um,
did his best work outside of Star Wars, as did
well,
everyone.
yeah.
Um, so,
Um, mhm.
forgetting that blemish on cinematic history
Mhm.
and moving on, let's Oh Lucky Man. First viewing for you, Ron?
Yes.
Okay.
And so, Ron,
Uh,
have you seen If dot
No,
dot?
I've never seen If. No,
Okay.
I wasn't until like halfway through the movie that I looked it up and realized that it was part two of like a loose
Sort of.
loosely,
trilogy.
Loosely.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
Yeah.
the Mick Travis character kind of changes each time. I don't think
sure.
we're
Yeah.
literally it's meant to be exactly
But
the
it was
same.
interesting. I noticed at the end, the credits said that the Oh Lucky Man was based on an idea by Malcolm McDowell.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
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 which I assume came off of him being an If and said he probably had the idea. Hey, how about we take this character and do it another one, right? I assume
well,
that's what that
it
meant.
Yeah.
wasn't so much
And
the character he was in If, and then because If won quite a lot of awards internationally, because there are lots of festivals and stuff. And then apparently Malcolm McDowell said to like Lindsay Anderson, like, "Hey, oh, we should do that again" or something. And Lindsay Anderson, being Lindsay Anderson, was like, "Fuck you, dude, calm the fuck down. Scripts like that don't come along every day. If you've got a good idea, bring it." Kind of,
mhm.
okay. And then Malcolm McDowell started jotting things down, apparently from his own past. He
Yeah.
was a
I guess
rep for a
he
coffee
did work
company.
as as a salesman, yeah, like
Yeah,
driving around
he
the
was
north of
sent to
England.
like the north. Well, he's from the northeast, isn't he? So
Hmm.
yeah, so the starting point was his personal experiences, and then they got David Sherwin in to do the script.
Hmm.
And apparently, oddly enough, also uncredited is Albert Finney had something to do with
Oh.
the script as well.
Hmm.
I'm not quite sure what exactly.
So I have seen If more than 20 times.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
Oh,
it was a film that I was fairly obsessed with as a teenager.
a great film.
Yeah, it is. It used to show regularly on A&E.
Mhm.
Uh, and it was one of the films that would show like a couple of times a
That's
year, and
the
whenever it was on,
Accident and Emergency Channel for those who don't know. It plays in
that's the one.
hospitals.
Yes.
But Nick used to be a doctor
And interestingly, it stopped playing abruptly
after
after
9/11, maybe.
no,
No,
after Columbine.
Columbine. There
Yes.
we go.
Columbine.
And
It's
I
about
think
high
it has
school violence.
it has never been seen. So its ending scene is quite it's astonishing. But yeah, it's about the British public school system, like the very kind of which of course means private school, which is so confusing. But basically, like a boarding school full of these upper middle class kids, and just about the brutality of the whole thing. And it is really good. It's kind of a remake of
Well,
a
that
French.
sounds like what was the other movie that we just watched, Clive? About the brutal
Oh,
British
Scum.
school. Scum, yeah.
Yeah,
Is it similar
Scum
to that?
definitely took a page out of If's book and then
Uh,
addressed it to Postal for sure. Yeah, yeah. In
Yeah,
fact, I think I might even
more
have
the working
mentioned
class.
If when we were talking about it.
Yeah. So
Um,
if it's incredible. And so the first time that I watched Oh Lucky Man, I do remember probably being disappointed that it wasn't really If Part Two, that it is very much a much more sprawling in scope. And
yes.
I think the music back then, I was probably like, why are we stopping the movie every like 15 minutes to have like a song about roughly what we've just seen? Or
Yes.
that was
Listening to
really
the bloke from the Animals.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I have to say, this time I was like, oh, this is fantastic. That completely, I didn't get along with it at all at the age of 20, but at the age of 50, I was like, I love this bizarre variety show as element to
Well,
it.
well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because the thing
yeah.
with If is it is also a kind of is a broad satire of, but because it's enclosed in that school, it seems a little bit more specific in a way. Whereas
Yeah.
All Lucky Man and I think Britannia Hospital as well, they're kind of state of the nation, or I suppose in the US they'd call them State of the
Mhm.
Union addresses, right? They're like, this is how it is. And in All Lucky Man, it goes all the way from, the top of business all the way down to
Mhm.
like soup kitchens and stuff. And
Yes.
what's surprising about it is, especially considering Lindsay Anderson, who is kind of a genius, but also is very much from that public school back.
Hmm.
I'm kind of surprised how much insight he has to all strata of British
Hmm.
class. Like it's actually a pretty insightful film circa UK 1973,
Hmm.
I think.
Hmm. Yes.
Surprisingly so.
It's also more like, I mean, If has some strange aesthetic choices, right? There's some interesting editing and there's some other stuff. But the latter two, but I think you're right. It's more grounded because of that setting, right? But these two start veering more into fantasy, I feel. I'm only having read about Britannia Hospital, but there's like almost a Monty Python-esque,
Yeah,
Mm. Yeah.
surrealistic play
Yeah,
that
yeah.
that I think happens in those later films. That's not quite there in If, or it's toned down in If.
Mm.
But I did appreciate it this time out. I was like, yeah, this is a really weird. Some really weird
Yeah.
stuff, Lucky Man. Should we even try to? I mean, because it's a hard film to talk about the plot in that
well,
it's
I'll give it
really
a bit of a go, seeing it was my
okay.
choice. So,
Okay,
once upon a time, and we have a bit
right.
of flashback to a kind of a unnamed South American country before Imperial Coffee comes
Hmm.
in, right? And that's our little setup. And then immediately you flash forward to present day, and Malcolm McDowell is Mick Travis, and he's the new recruit at this coffee company. And as per the title, or Lucky Man, things always happen that just kind of manage to, because obviously he's a guy like he's cocksure and he's up for
Hmm.
everything, but something always happens. Someone always dies, or he's in the right place at the right time, and he never says, "Oh, I don't know about that," or "I'm not sure." Like his whole approach is, "Yes, I know about
He's
Hmm.
a
that,"
yes
and
man.
then you just kind of
He's Jim Carrey.
which is in itself kind of just such a. I think there's so many people who rule our world today who ended up there because of this
Mm.
attitude, right? And it's difficult to say
Right.
whether it's good or bad, but yeah, there
Hmm.
is a certain attitude which is, yeah, I can do that. And
Hmm.
then you just scramble to once you get yeah, I can ride a horse, and then once you get the job, you go and take
Well,
riding lessons or
that's
whatever.
apparently what most actors do. Is
Yeah.
that when they go
Oh
to
yeah.
audition, they're like, "Oh, can you speak French?" "Oh yeah, sure, yeah," and then
We
they go home to
yeah.
learn French. Right?
Mm.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, so he ends up kind of inheriting some guys fucked off for unknown reasons. He ends up inheriting the entire North Territory as a sales rep, right?
This whole section really reminds me of uh what's the novel that Apocalypse Now is? Heart of Darkness.
Right.
There's something like the British Heart of Darkness, like him going into like
The
deepest
North.
Africa. Yeah, like and trying to take over from this guy who's gone MIA basically, right? You know, up there somehow.
Yeah,
He's just walked
Kurtz has gone to fucking walk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's something about it that really reminded me of, and
Yeah,
I think that's a deliberate echo, I think, of
heart of pie and chips, right? Like,
yes.
yeah. So you have to go up there. Yeah, so he kind of ends up going there, and then I mean, the first time I watched this film, this film really got to me. So there's this sequence. He ends up going to like a working man's club, right?
Mhm.
And they're showing like a stag film, and there's like a strip, and they're all chanting for chocolate sandwich, you know.
Yeah, I was scared where that might be going, but it
I
turned out
was
not to be
just
as
I
worrying
was
as I thought.
beaming from year to year because this
Where you were.
rings so fucking true, right? There's something about this that just seems like I had no idea how Public School by Lindsay Anderson knew about this, but it just again the Malcolm McDowell thing, I guess. But this just
Mhm.
seems like bang on,
Right.
bang on
Observe
UK
observe from life.
1973, right? Like it's
Right. And they're all like the local, you know, they're all the local businessmen and like politicians and stuff. And it's like it's that crowd
yeah.
of kind of
So just as I suppose speed through because otherwise it'll take forever. So basically, yeah, he ends up ping-ponging from one situation to another. I think from that he ends up getting captured outside a military installation, right? And then he
Mhm.
ends up in there, and then something horrible happens there, like a mini apocalypse. And then
Right.
he's left with his gold lame suit. And then he hitchhikes to London, ends up in a hospital, and there's this terrifying sequence with medical experiments and a man who's been turned into a sheep or something, which is
Mhm.
just like, whoa, one of the most memorable
That stuck with me the very
sequences.
first
Yeah,
time
Oh yeah.
I saw it.
How much did
That really bothered me when I was a kid.
yeah, no, don't worry.
Yeah.
We'll stop and we'll talk about all these things. I'm just going to
Mhm.
race through it now, just to give the
Yeah.
broad spectrum. Ends up, yeah, hitching a ride back to London with Alan Price and his band and Helen Mirren.
Mirren looking
Yeah.
fantastic.
In the city, Helen Mirren's she's the ultimate daddy's girl, and he ends up kind of working for the there's a line or something like he's the most evil man you could ever hope to meet, right?
Yes.
And
And I
he
do
like
love
owns
how he gets the job. Like
buildings,
that
etc. Again, he
struggle.
gets the job because someone else jumps out the window, huts like a
Yes.
property style, right?
It's completely or Monty Python. It's something, yeah.
And then there's
Really
this
comedic.
horrifying sequence where so we should mention as well that a lot of the actors have dual roles. So for you Dad's Army fans out there who have never, if you've never seen Arthur Lowe in blackface before, prepare yourselves to see Captain Mannering in blackface, playing an African president. And there's this horrible sequence where they're doing this whole deal about like how many peasants will die in putting down this revolution. So the Imperial Coffee Company, or it's not that, it's something else. It's not Imperial Coffee. It's is it something to do with diamonds, or I can't remember, some chemicals?
Yes.
It's some heinous fucking but totally believable deal that's going on in central London that's destroying the entire lives of all these people in another country.
Yeah.
And then from there he ends up a scapegoat for, and then he ends up running a soup kitchen. And sorry, the reason I'm blabbing,
he goes to jail
I love this film so much, I can't help myself from kind of, and because one thing leads to, and then when we eventually, even when we get to we're getting to the soup kitchen, right? And we're thinking, clearly, Lindsay Anderson, please, you're going to let up at some point. You're going to leave someone off the hook, not the barb of your fucking satire. Oh no, all these fucking homeless people are horrible as well. And there's a piece of graffiti very prominently put, and I wrote it down because it seems to be very important. Revolution is the opium of the intellectuals, which I think is just fucking like nothing Lindsay Anderson's kind of message seems to be everyone is a fucking predatory, horrible fucking human, but
Yes.
you gotta smile and put up with it. Because we go into this
It's
whole
a
nectar thing at the end where
it's
the
it's a
movie about, yes,
scabrous vision.
it is a takedown. It's a total takedown. UK 73, top to bottom. And I fucking
Pre-punk.
love it.
Pre-punk, which is interesting, right?
Yeah. Oh,
But in a
yeah.
way,
Yeah.
very punk, right?
Yeah. So before we get to details, and also, Nick, I'm sure you have lots of detailed stuff to say. I would like to hear Ron's take because
Good
he's never
idea.
seen it before, but also because he comes from a slightly different background from both of us as well, right? So certain things might not
Mhm.
line up exactly the same. So I'm not sure how Oh Lucky Man would have, it might have played, or it might have been picking up on the same cues. I don't know if it's more international in scope than I might think, but
Well,
basically,
Northern Ontario is pretty fucking depressing. So I could imagine being sent to Northern Ontario to sell coffee
but
would
I suppose
be
basically
equally dislocating experience.
that's a fancy
I'm
way of
Southern
saying,
Ontario, so I can't comment.
how did you get on with Oh Lucky Man, Ron?
Um, yeah, I actually I'm kind of happy that both of you are here today to talk with us because I think yeah, what we each of us have a different perspective from it because yeah, I think this movie is really, really British. It's
Hmm.
really, really British,
Yeah,
right? And
I accept that.
I was like zoom, zoom, zoom. Everything was just. I was like, I have no idea what the fuck's going on, but I'm sure it's just making British people roll on the floors, right? And on the floor. And but it's interesting also, Nick, that you're kind of like got your foot in both camps, right? That you're, so you probably have a unique perspective as well, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I think it was, uh, yeah, I definitely could tell that it was, uh satirical and I thought it was really really I do think it was a little long. How do I put it? But
Okay.
it could have
I
been
suppose
edited a little
before you go any
bit,
further, I just want to
but
know,
yeah.
first off, did you enjoy it? I suppose is first off.
I'd say I enjoyed parts of it. I
Right.
think it sort of ebbs and flows a little bit. Like there's some stuff I was like, whoa, like really made me sit up and pay attention. And then it kind of started to kind of drag a little bit. And I was like, where's this going? Where's this leading? And ultimately sometimes it doesn't really lead anywhere. And that's part of I guess part of the journey, right? It's more
Yes.
it's
Yeah.
almost like it's like a road trip movie, right? It's just sort of like a
Your
and
favorite genre?
yes, right, exactly. And as we, I don't, as I sort of kind of began to settle into it, I was like, okay, it's not really a plot
Mhm.
driven piece. It's more of a, experience the journey. It's the journey, not the destination of this movie, I think, right? I kind of settled in and was able to kind of enjoy most more of it. But of course, as I was saying, a lot of stuff I was like, I'm sure this is really, really insightful or satirical or really just like really biting, but I'm not sure what it's referring to, right? So I didn't really get all so
Well, it's 50 years old as well, to be fair.
yeah, yeah. It's also, I
Yeah.
mean, it's not just cultural, but also time wise as well,
Right.
right? So
Right.
yeah. But I mean, I love Malcolm McDowell. I think Malcolm McDowell can do no wrong for me. I mean, I just love, he just has the most expressive face. Like,
Yeah.
I love, like, he's fucking got those gigantic eyes,
Yeah.
and he's
Yeah.
he plays eager like nobody, right? Like nobody
He
else,
could
right?
have
Just
done
like,
silent films. He could have
what's
done
that?
silent films. He's
Oh
like
yeah,
out there with
absolutely.
Tom
Yeah, yeah.
Skinski or something
I
like.
love to watch his face. He's just such an interesting actor to watch, right? So he's just like his
Is it
like
is it
he's
just
on
me as well? Is some of
yeah.
the in the later scenes when he's in a courtroom and stuff,
Hmm.
it's very Clockwork Orange.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
I think
I had,
And him being attacked by the derelicts as well.
yeah.
yeah,
I was
but there
almost
were,
Yeah.
mapping it over.
especially in the courtroom, I kept expecting him to just say, "I was led astray by the treachery of others." Like I,
Where's me droogs? Right. So yeah, but yeah, I think again, I don't have a strong perspective as I'm sure the two of you have in terms of like the historical or cultural significance of it. But I say I overall enjoyed it. I thought it was interesting. It was yeah, it was like real real strange stuff in there. Some of that, but some of it was like,
Yeah.
whoa, that's really, really like really hit you hard, like the stuff in the hospital and stuff like that. And then the homeless people stuff was about right. And then and I actually really liked. I guess maybe I'm old enough to accept it, but I liked the musical interludes with Alan
Yeah.
Price. It was sort of like a Greek chorus kind of thing, almost,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah, where so I kind of liked. At first I was kind of like, what the fuck is this? And then I was like, oh, okay, I can buy into this kind of conceit, whatever. And so yeah, overall, I'd say it was enjoyable. I would have trimmed it a bit, but I understand that it sort of needed to be long to get the full idea of the journey, I guess, right? So
Right. And I
yeah,
suppose as well, in terms of the time thing as well, some of the latter parts where it's him auditioning and ending up in the meta stuff is
Hmm.
right,
that would have played a lot more. Oh, in 73, that would have been a lot more kind of, I've never seen this before. Whereas now
sure, yeah,
it's
been done,
it has been done, yeah, many times.
yeah,
But that's not the film's fault, obviously.
yeah,
Hmm.
sure,
Yeah,
of course, yeah.
yeah.
So Ron, were there any specifics before, like we maybe unpack specific scenes that struck
Don't
us?
say
Maybe you
unpack.
could go.
Carry on.
Okay, whatever. Discuss. Uh,
Thank you.
Yeah.
have a chin wag about. Yeah. So, do you want to highlight a couple of scenes that were particularly strong ones for you?
Well,
Because
the
you said,
one I guess the hospital one was the one that stuck out for me. I mean, but
mm,
certainly it was a
Yeah, no one
but
sees that coming. No one sees that
yeah,
coming.
yeah. I think that's why it sticks out because it's so out. Like I think connected to my choice, which is sort of like the genre switch. This
mm,
has several genre switches. Like
Yes.
each
mm,
each kind of segment is like a different movie in itself, right?
mhm,
It's different genre. So it's interesting and it's good on them for being able to kind of navigate and successfully pull off these sort of like full like genre switches and like total like and now this is a political thriller about killing
mhm.
refugees, so now it's a horror movie and now it's like a
Yeah.
whatever, yeah.
I,
So yeah.
I really think one of the reasons that works as well, especially the genre switching thing, is, and again, this is something you wouldn't, I mean, obviously you would have seen a lot of people doing kind of strong performances and a lot of people doing several strong performances.
Mhm.
But if you're a bit more of a kind of trained spotter of UK movie and TV history, there's a lot of familiar character actor faces in this,
Mhm.
right? And it Lindsay Anderson's smart in that it's kind of a little bit like Paul Morrissey as an outsider tried to do it later when he did Hound of the Baskervilles, and he put in all these kind of old vaudeville faces and carry on faces and stuff, but not to quite the same. But what Lindsay Anderson's done is quite smart. Is he, rather than just you know populate his film with raw young talent or something, he's actually gone back to the well of proper character actors, right?
Mhm.
So it's got a really strong framework. So no matter how ridiculous it gets, you
Mm.
have these stalwart,
Uh,
to steal Darren's favorite
Like
phrase,
the
kind
first,
of character actors with decades of experience, and they sell it, right? Like even fucking Arthur Lowe in blackface as the African president. Once you get over, oh, is that Arthur
Mhm.
Lowe in blackface? It's like, he commits, right? It's a
uh,
proper performance. As problematic as it might be, I
Mhm.
suppose it's a bit difficult for people to kind of get over that now. But
yeah.
um, but there's so many other people in there as well. Peter
It reminded
Jeffrey,
me.
Rachel Roberts, Ralph Richards. I
Mm.
mean, Michael Elphick. I mean, it's a who's who, right? The cast.
And Graham Crowden, who we'll have to talk about in
Graham
just a second,
Crowden, yeah,
who's
fucking
very
hell.
important. But I would say for me, it reminded me of the first time I saw Pasolini's Canterbury Tales, because he does the same thing too,
Yes,
right? It's quite astonishing to see who is in that. You're like, is that guy from Are You Being Served? And is that person from, like, there's all of these kind of, yeah, like TV sitcom actors, but who are perfect
yeah.
faces for the
But what I
Canterbury
mean is,
Tales.
even if you don't know who they are, as Ron doesn't know who a lot of those people are, it still works
Mm.
Hmm.
because
Sure.
they're doing a good job. But it's just an
Yeah,
extra icing on the cake if
sure,
you know who they are
exactly.
as well. Yeah.
Hmm. Graham Crowden is the one who plays the mad doctor who's running the hospital, and apparently he is a major character then in Britannia Hospital, is my understanding.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
that character follows on
Is
into the next.
Britannia Hospital about that hospital?
It's sort of, or that doctor anyway. Like he's kind of
Oh,
he becomes even more of a
I tell you
Frankenstein
who Graham Crowden
figure.
reminds me of a little bit. He's kind of like he's like the OG um Peter Capaldi.
Yes, yes. And what is funny, actually, that's funny because he was the first choice, BBC's first choice to play the Doctor after John Pertwee,
I can see
and they
that he would have
really
been an awesome.
pursued him very hard, and he ultimately said, "No, I'm not interested in doing something that would take up so many years of my life." And so Tom Baker was kind of an emergency
You can
because at
see
the
that.
last minute
You can see
Graham was
that.
like, no. And so then he came back and then he appeared. He's in a Doctor Who serial from the 70s with playing the villain opposite Tom Baker. And his scenery chewing in that, I have seen people do super cuts of that where they've literally just taken his sequence out because they are
Which Doctor
so
Who is
bad.
that? Which serial is that?
I'll have to look it up. But if you look up Graham Crowden Doctor Who, you
Okay,
find it on YouTube immediately because
but it's Tom
multiple
Baker era.
Tom Baker era,
Oh,
yes.
there did have been no
The
scenery
horns,
left between.
the horns of Nymon.
Oh,
The
Haunted
horns of
Nine. Okay, yeah, between him and
yes.
Tom Baker, it would have been like a
It's
plague of locusts would have come in and just stripped your set bare. I don't.
it's insane.
Wow.
But yeah, he's brilliant in this. Obviously, he's like his energy as that doctor, kind of coming in, glad handling people, and then yeah, clearly doing some very
Yeah, he's not
sort of
Doctor Who. He's Doctor What the fuck here. Like, yeah.
exactly. And then one of my favorite scenes is actually a very simple scene, and it's quite near the beginning when he's first driving up north and he hits that fog bank, and the guy overtakes him in the car, and then he comes
Yes.
out of the
oh
fog to
yeah,
come
and it
on
just crushes.
the
Yeah, yeah,
wreck, and it's such a beautifully strange,
yeah.
powerful little scene. And then the police showing up, and then it's clearly that guy. It's the same actor who plays the guy with the head on the sheep later. So the implication seems to be he's been taken from that crash
Uh,
site and then taken to this hospital where they're doing experiments.
and they saved
Yes,
his
yeah,
head.
but well, I mean, yes, because
Okay.
people do play multiple roles. You're not sure if they're connected or, but it could be. It's an interesting read.
True.
There's so
Yeah.
many little bit. There's so many little bits, and like you. I've watched this film multiple, and the one that jumped out at me this time just seems totally out of nowhere, but just really stuck with me. Was just before Mick's about to take off on his new job, taking over the Northeast, and the character says to him, "Try not to die like a dog." What? Fantastic! Like that's
I
stuck with me,
quite
man.
I quite like the tailor as well, who lives in the same boarding house or whatever, who sews him the gold lame suit for reasons unknown. Like
Yeah.
that,
Well, that's the
their
same
whole
character. That's
exchange.
the guy who's that's
That's
the guy
him,
who
yeah,
said,
that's
try,
him.
yeah. They're the
Yes.
one who kind
Yeah.
of cagey about what happened. And so we should mention Rachel Roberts, amazing
Hmm.
Welsh actress. She's the one who plays. She has several characters, but the two that stand out at the coffee factory, that she's the one who does the coffee drinking, kissing thing with Mick Travis.
Right.
Oh,
Yes.
And then later on, she's the woman who he tries to stop committing suicide,
mm.
Yes.
right? And she had, I mean, her life story is also like tragic. She was married to what's his name, fucking Rex Harrison,
Oh shit.
and
Okay.
I think she turned up in that book we read, Nick, Hellraisers.
Oh shoot. Is she the one who famously was biting like Robert Mitchum's thigh or
Yes,
whatever at a
like Rex.
party?
She was like walking around on all fours like a dog and drinking out of a bowl. Like she was properly looking on another fucking planet. And
Mm.
her demise was horrible as well. She did actually, she committed suicide, but her suicide was something like, I'm paraphrasing. Forgive me if I get this wrong, but it's something along the lines of she OD'd, but then woke up and on the way to like going to the toilet to throw up or something, like walked through a glass door and like cut herself to ribbons and bleeded to
Yeah,
death.
you're right. I just went to
It's
her
like,
page. Yeah.
yeah, it's pretty fucking horrible. But she's, yeah, one of those great, phenomenal, but just tragic kind of
He damaged
characters.
humans.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Welsh, to be expected,
Well,
right?
there you go.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not going to
Um,
argue.
And of course, Lindsay Anderson appears in the movie as himself. He appears as the director of If.
Yes.
So that, and then he cracks Malcolm McDowell across the face with a film script or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And cinematographer Movislav Ondřiček is in it as well, right? Like
Right.
towards the end. Yeah, that whole big party kind of scene, which is the only thing I think that kind of rings, yeah, maybe slightly dated now because it's not because that breaking the fourth wall thing maybe has been played out, but it's still, I mean, it's not terrible. It plays out well enough, right? It's not like, no, this sucks or anything. It's just, doesn't quite have the bite it might have had.
And then it's got like all those couple sequences closer to the end where it becomes like a silent film.
Right, which starts at the beginning, doesn't it? But
the beginning, then it comes back
bit more towards the end.
And so that,
yeah, they feel slightly like affectations that if you remove them, it would make a difference, right?
No.
Sure, yeah.
But funny enough, that opening segment, when I watched it this time, I remembered, you know how that like the memory cheats, right? And this is to do with what you said, Ron, about those incredibly expressive eyes that Malcolm McDowell has. I thought we saw his hands come off in that part where the plantation guy, chops off his hands. I was convinced that you actually saw his hands come off, and then I watched it. I was like, no, you don't. He expresses that with those huge eyes.
Yeah.
And then your mind just fills in the blank.
Fills in the blanks,
yeah. But another actor in this who I quite like is Jeffrey Palmer, who is again in a lot of like he was in Rise and Fall of Reginald Perrin and Butterflies. He's one of those British actors of just a certain vintage he should have been in Yes Prime Minister if he wasn't.
I think he was in Yes Prime Minister.
There we go. That makes sense.
It's interesting. We all seem to, even though we have different histories, that we all seem to kind of have kind of find a lot of interest in Ola Nima, which I'm very pleased because I pretty much, because I might have discussed it with you before, Nick. I kind of knew that Nick was, but I wasn't sure how this would play with you, Ron, just because I don't know. I suppose, yes, you've hit the nail on the head. I wouldn't have been able to say why, but I think, it might be the specific kind of Britishness of it to a certain extent. Because I can't get away from that watching it, and because I recognize all the characters and stuff. I mean, I suspect, this would play well otherwise, but I don't really know. Sure. But you have kind of confirmed.
Yeah, I got on with it. I think as with any movie like this, I think I didn't get as much out of it as you did, or as people of a certain age might as well.
But you have got something out of it.
But I got something out of it, and it was I bought into the journey and the character, and and I don't think every part worked for me, but as a cumulative whole, I think it was had a cumulative effect to it.
Right.
So I think it worked overall. I think so.
I think if is worth seeing if you have not seen If, Ron, it is very much.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I would suspect actually that Nick, that Ron would really like If.
Okay.
And it's about school.
Kind of works a little bit more in and of itself.
Okay.
Yeah, it's more of a movie with a through line. There is, I mean, it's still a bit meandery, but it's more. There is a building escalation of events that leads to this climactic.
Well, also it's because it's more specific and it's less state of the nation kind of thing. It's like you can kind of relate to it a bit more, I think. And Britannia Hospital is definitely worth a look, but wait a year or something. I think to be fair,
I've often heard it brought up in relation to the meaning of life.
Yeah, no, there is a lot of meaning of life in this, oddly enough. I was thinking that watching it as well. Some of the parts are almost like meaning of life sketches without the punchline or something.
Sure. Yes.
Right.
It's Anyway,
so Malcolm McDowell. I was just going to say as a final thing. So you know what Malcolm McDowell is doing now? He's on a CBC sitcom, Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, called Son of a Critch, where he plays the granddad of the main character. And like it's sort of a bizarre thing for me to stumble across him fairly regularly on Canadian TV in a sitcom and being like, what is Malcolm McDowell doing in a sitcom that's filmed and set in Newfoundland? right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, weird.
So,
So,
that's enough of that.
yes.
Now then, young Ron,
Hmm.
you had a slightly different take, as you mentioned. You went for
Yeah,
well, put it in different ways. Yeah.
Alfie Darling,
Hmm.
as again, is mostly like a rom-com kind of romantic movie, kind of, and then finishes quite dark. So I just did a search for, genre switch movies that have a kind of a stark or unexpected genre switch. And this one came up, and it was on my list of movies to watch for years. It's quite famous.
I'm surprised I would have
For
thought if you'd searched for
Yeah,
switch
it's
hitting
definitely
movies, you would have come up with a very different list. But
what's that? Oh, if what? Sorry.
switch hitting movies.
Switch hitting. Oh, switch hitting movies. Yeah, yeah. That's for a different podcast.
A
Yeah,
whole other
Yes,
scene.
that's
yeah.
the other one we do when we're all dressed in leather and shit. Right?
I've got the gimp mask on, right? So,
Yes.
The Mineshaft podcast. Check it out, guys.
yeah. Yeah. Okay, so this is so I chose Audition from 99 2000, depending on where you are,
99.
and 2000 in other places
No, it's
because
not quite for those.
actually, because and I can say this because my wife looked it up and she said that on Japanese website it says 2000. So it was
Interesting.
I thought it was 99, but she said 2000. So I think it depends on
Well, it's not
what.
my fault if Japanese is wrong as well. It is 99.
Yeah, so,
That's
yeah,
all I
so.
can say.
Anyway, so audition. So it's so
So
it's been on my kind of.
you hadn't seen it before, and
I
that's
hadn't.
interesting
Yeah.
because neither had I.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is a weird
I was
missing piece.
surprised they cut
I
it.
had,
Yeah, me too. Yeah, it was like a real like, why have I not seen this movie before? So I should have seen it before by now.
and
But
it's not like I haven't seen plenty of other Takashi Miike movies. I've seen
sure.
dozens of them. So how I didn't see Audition back in '99, I don't quite
Yeah.
know. But anyway,
But anyway, yeah. So this is again also like starts off kind of like a romance a little bit, and then takes not quite at the last 2 minutes, but sort of about halfway through starts to kind of get darker and darker, and then has a nice dark finish to it. So this is based on the novel by Ru Murakami, which I read right after I saw this movie. So I went and
oh,
I
Oh,
got the
okay. I
book
haven't
and
read
read
the
it.
novel. Are they
me
Yeah.
neither.
similar or different or?
There's yeah. So as soon as I read this, I was like, I want to read this novel. So I read it. It's very very short, easy. It's like 200 pages. It's like I read it in like a day. So I recommend it. It's a good read. There's a couple of things that are different. Um, I'd say overall the movie's better than the book, but the book is still worth a read. And I
okay.
heard that they're doing a new version of it that's closer to the book. I've
Okay.
heard.
We should probably say for
So,
this as well, definitely spoiler alert.
yeah,
Always.
definitely.
Yes. Yes.
The other thing
Um,
as well, I just wanted to bring up just because it's your one reason for choosing it, and this is not a slight on you by any means at all, because this is how the movie was marketed in a way. But it's one of those weird bits of marketing that I wonder. I'm not. It's funny. I'm not quite how sure that this worked in retrospect, because everyone talks about it like, well, it's like this, and then it goes like that. But I seem to remember from back in the day, like knowing that before I went in, and everyone I knew that before they went in. Like apart from people
well,
who saw it at, like
I think it's
film festivals, because people saw it at film festivals, and then the way they reported it was, "Oh, you won't believe Miki Takashi's new film. It starts like this, but then it goes like that," and then no one ever had the opportunity to view it
you view it that way.
then
Yeah. So
since, right?
yeah,
So
Unspoiled. Yeah.
yeah, and spoiled. Yeah. So yeah, because I mean, it's a pretty famous horror movie. Like it's like
exactly,
quoted
it's
by
not
all these
in the
horror,
romantic
like
section of the
inspired
video
like
shop.
what's his face? Hostel and the Saw
Eli Roth,
movies.
yeah.
Eli Roth. So
It's not,
they all and Quentin Tarantino is mentioned it and stuff
yeah,
like that. Like
it's not
it's
in the
very famous as a
Jennifer
horror movie.
Aniston section of the video shop, right? It's
Yeah.
in the horror section, right?
It
Yeah.
sits next to. It'd be nice if it was next to Notting Hill. That'd be
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, that would make more sense. That would properly
so
fuck people up,
Yeah.
right? And if the cover
But-
was like Ishibashi Ryo and Shinai, like and flowers, and then there was, yeah, fair enough. That would probably take people by surprise.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, I'll talk about this later because I think Miike Takahashi actually did do the same trick to a better extent with Dead or Alive Hanzaisha from the same year. Which, well, we'll talk about that when we talk about surprise endings, because that's more of a fucking last minute left turn, which is like, what the fuck? And it's totally different to what was preceding it. But yeah, anyway, carry on.
Yeah. So anyway, this is just brief summary is that there's it starts with opening scene is a man's kind of like his wife is dying in the hospital and his son is on his way rushing to the hospital carrying some like an art piece that he's created for his mom, and on the way mom dies and just the kid shows up just as the mom has died and misses it, and she says, "Oh, I made this for you." So it sort of starts off with this very kind of sad, kind of heartwarming kind of thing with a son, and it's kind of setting up the son-father relationship, I guess. And then it kind of jumps ahead, like I don't know, what, 8 years, I think, or something. I can't
7 years,
remember exactly.
Yeah, his son's a teenager now.
Should have
Yeah,
mentioned
so
that the father is played by Ishibashi Ryo, who's a very
Yeah.
famous actor in Japan. Yeah.
right. He was from Ju-on, right, in the Grudge movies and stuff. So
Yeah, well, he's been
um,
famous, yeah, for a long
yeah,
time.
it's for other stuff. But well, it also interestingly, I mentioned him to my wife. I was trying to get my wife to watch this movie with me, and it was like, "Has Ishibashi Bro?" And she's like, "Oh, who's that?" She couldn't remember. So he's not he's famous to some people, but even Japanese people sometimes
Maybe
don't.
not too younger, yeah, but
Yeah.
so had your missus not seen this film before as well? That's kind of
She's
surprising.
never seen it either, so I was
Oh,
trying to
okay.
get her to watch it with me, but we just couldn't find the time. But I ended up watching it myself anyway. But I might watch it with her in the future sometime. But yeah. So anyway, son decides is kind of a teenager now and tells dad that he's sort of getting on. He should get remarried, and so he decides to kind of start dating again, but he doesn't know how to go about do that. So he goes to his friend who runs kind of like a not tele is like works in casting of some kind, movie
Yeah,
casting.
they both work in kind of the movie and TV industry, right? His
Yeah,
friend
yeah.
as well is played by Kunimura Jun, again, who's been acting for a long time. He's kind of come into his own recently because he was the Japanese man in the Korean. I say Japanese man because that's the character in
Right,
that
right.
awesome Korean horror movie, The Wailing. Like he's
Okay.
the Japanese guy who's in that, who's very important, pivotal to the story, and he's in shitloads of films. And I have once worked with him as well. I
Oh,
walked
Okay.
up a staircase as a journalist trying to pose questions to him, and he's a very. It's funny, not so much in this, but sometimes in films he can be like the most intimidating, like present. Like he just has
Right.
that fucking
yeah, you can see it. You can
scary
see it. You can see it in
look.
this
He
too, I
can play a
think.
Yakuza really well.
Yeah.
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 Mm.
And he's a bit like that in real life. The one time I met him, he's not rude or anything, but he was just like, boom, don't talk
Right.
to me. And I was like, whoa, I'm a big fan, but I'm not gonna ask you to sign or say anything. You are a little bit scary. Yeah. I'm sure he's a lovely man.
Um,
He loves kittens.
Mhm.
Yeah.
to kill them.
Mm.
Okay. Anyway, so his friend decides, hey, how about we have an audition, and we'll kind of like make this sort of fake movie, and we'll audition a bunch of women, based on what you want. And this is, I guess, of course, pre-dating apps, of course, right? So is this whole kind of like thing where we're gonna have an audition for a fake movie, and you can kind of specify what kind of woman you're looking for, and then they can come, and then you can sort of get to know them, and then we'll just say, "Oh, the movie fell through," and then you'll end up with your wife, right? So,
To be
what
fair,
a
I don't think
foolproof
it's
what a
pre.
foolproof plan! What could go wrong, right? So,
I don't think it's pre-dating apps, but it's pre-dating apps that make sense for an old geezer, I think, right?
sure,
Yeah.
sure,
Right.
Yeah. You
yeah,
would have
It's
had them
also
online, right? You
interesting.
could have gone online, but yeah.
It's interesting that there's an essay component, and it's actually
yeah,
her essay that is what he
right,
becomes initially obsessed with, right?
yes,
That
Well,
reminded me of the whole thing in Japan of having to handwrite your fucking
yeah.
resume.
Well, this
Like,
whole section of the film as well is fantastically it's interesting to me that this film still. So I was thinking about this. So this film is it's now 26 years old, right?
Mhm.
And 26 years before this film came out, The Exorcist would have been a new film. The gap is
Okay.
the same, right? And I was thinking, watching The Exorcist in 1999 wouldn't have seemed as dated, but Audition still seems to play well to young audiences. But the whole section about like talking about, and I know it's part of the characters, whatever, they're supposed to be old geezers, but the whole thing about auditioning a girl is deeply creepy in the first place.
Yeah,
Mhm.
The
yeah.
whole thing about like, oh, she's got to be, from a good family and well bred, and there's a point where they're in a bar looking at some other girls, and they're not doing anything, they're just over there enjoying
Mhm.
themselves, giggling, but they've already made a judgment call. They're like,
Mhm.
fucking
Yep.
bitches, they're stupid,
Mhm.
and they've got no. And the thing is, that's not. This is the interesting thing. This fascinates me. Is I've been in Japan long enough now that I've realized that sometimes when people watch films from another country, they give them benefit of the doubt, right?
Mhm.
They're like, "Oh, that seems sexist or racist, but it's a cultural thing or whatever." But then if you've
Mhm.
been in a certain bit long enough, you're like, "Nope, I'm not buying that. That is actually
No,
just
they're
kind of
just being assholes.
old-fashioned." And yeah, so I think some younger people now, especially watching that, they're like, "Oh, that's yeah, that's you're supposed to view it through their eyes." But I don't buy it for a second. It is very much Japan 1999, and
No, and in that way,
there's a satirical element in there, but not as much as you might think that we're supposed to be judgmental about Ishibashi Ryo's. When this film was new, I don't think we were that much supposed to think that what he was doing was problematic. I
Mm.
think we were just
Well,
supposed to go along with it.
this is one thing that reading the book kind of helped with because
Okay,
through the book he has more of like a conscience about it, and he's constantly saying like,
interesting.
I feel like this is not a good idea, or like I feel really
Yeah,
guilty about this. But it's kind of put out that the friend kind of like pushes it through more. It's like it's the friend's
interesting.
idea, and he kind of
That
goes
is in
along
the
with it
film a
because
little bit, to be fair,
it
but
is a little bit in the
yeah,
film, but it kind of was stronger in the book. So I think that was
I
kind of
that's
where that
interesting.
came
I
from.
can
So
see that. I haven't
yeah,
read that book, but I've read some other Murakami Ryu, and I can see that might be because
right.
he's an odd character in some ways, and nowadays you see him on TV talking about economics more than anything else. But he's quite progressive in some ways. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so they've got like hundreds or thousands of these applicants for of women for this movie, and he's kind of sorting through all these. And of course, it's not digital, so they're all these like folders, like file folders for each of these. He's got like bags of these file folders. He's going through them, and which is really kind of creepy, where he's basically like, but which is kind of like it's like a dating app, but without the digital element of it, right? It's like you're kind of like he's like swiping right with these file
Yeah.
folders, right? Kind of thing, right? So, which is
But
kind of
what's
interesting.
interesting about that, though, you say
Yeah,
it's funny. It highlights. It seems creepy because he's done it, and that. But I think because it's the power. Because, like you said, nowadays, well, you do the same thing. It's just there isn't the
yeah.
heavy lifting, so it seems less creepy.
Yeah, you
But
just do that,
it's the
yeah,
same
right?
thing. But it's
Same. It
just
is the same
because
thing. Yeah,
he's
but
doing
this is
it from the
based on a
position of
lie.
yeah.
power. Yeah.
And it's based on a lie, right? So
Basically a
it's
lot.
based on a dating
Yes.
app. They
But
are
then
aware of why they're there.
90% of people on those apps are lying as well, right?
Sure.
They're all like
But
looking
they're but
for a
they're
serious
but they
relationship.
know why they're on the site. It's not like they're on the site to be an actress
But
when
yeah,
No, I know
presumably the
that,
women have
but
showed up
think about the
thinking
number
there's a
of people on
movie.
there who are like looking for someone to marry, and it's not. They're
No.
looking
yeah,
for booty call,
Hookups.
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, he's like sorting through them, and as you said, Nick, he kind of comes across this one kind of like stands out to him, and he like reads her essay. Who she talks about like how she was a ballet dancer and wanted to go professional, but then hurt her hip, and then it turned out that it was like dying, like going through a death or grieving a death,
This is
and for some reason
Shima
because
Ahi, right?
Ahe,
Mhm.
right? And so I think that kind of connects with him with his wife's death, and so I think he kind of like kind of decides she's the one that I want, right? She's the one that I want. I'm going to go for, which is kind of strange that he's like of all these women, like there's one is he has not even like a few of them. He's like this, it's just this one, right? And so he kind of has only himself to blame for when it comes down to the end of this movie because really, I mean, he could have picked anyone. He didn't have to pick her, right? So it's not like she was like because the conceit of the movie is that he chose her, but then there's bad things happen to him. But at
Mhm.
the same time, she didn't force her way in, right? It wasn't her
No.
who she was just there to get the job, and then
Mhm.
this happened to her. So in some ways you can kind of like see it from her point of view a little bit, right? So anyway,
Well, it's
but anyway,
interesting when we get to I'm
yeah.
very interested in how it played versus the book because, yeah, because without having read the book, I think that either the director or the screenwriter of this film doesn't actually understand the book at all. But
Oh,
you
really?
think the movie's better, so we'll see. You know
Okay.
better than me, but I think
Mhm.
if there's any core message in the book, the film doesn't get it at all. This is a
Really?
deeply unprofound film by
Uh,
viewing eyes, but yeah.
well,
Mhm.
okay. Well, we'll come back to that then. So
Mhm.
yeah, so anyway, so he chooses her, she comes to the audition, and then he decides to like follow up and calls her and then goes out on a few dates with her and then starts to kind of date with her and kind of becomes quite obsessed with her. And then
They
they
go to a
go
love
away.
hotel, right?
Yeah, yeah, the Love Hotel, and then they go away for like a weekend, and she kind of then just disappears, right?
Mhm.
And for the most part, it's just kind of like a light kind of kind of a creepy, inappropriate. But you're supposed to accept that it's a romance, right?
Mhm.
That he's sort
We
of
forgot to
got good
mention
intentions.
I suppose it's important for some people is the age gap as well, right?
The age gap, yeah, it works, right?
She's
So that as well.
24 and he's,
Right.
well, at least 20 years older,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
at least, yeah.
Yeah.
For the most part, it's that kind of movie. Although there is like occasionally
Yep. Hints. Yep.
hints, and then there's one scene where he's like, I want to call her, but the friend said, don't call her, don't call her. And he's like, oh, I really want to, I want to call her, and he's like, all right, fuck it, I'm gonna call her. So he calls her, and then you see her side of it, which is kind of the first part you
Mhm.
see where there's, and it fucking like just really stands out, right? Where she's just kind of like she's like
Wow.
been sitting like prone for like 4 days with this
Mhm.
giant like bag in her room, and it kind of jumps and there's something in
Witches. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it's
So
very
hang
very
on, hang on, hang on.
Effective.
So did that scene, was that a jolting scene?
I think it
I
was.
I thought
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
That's fascinating. See, again, because when we get to it, I have a very different take on this film. But I've come over the years to realize it is really me, not the film, because everyone has that. Uh,
Yeah.
everyone
Okay.
has that response.
I mean,
Everyone I
I
know is
even
like,
kind of knew
Jesus, that bit
what was
was,
coming
yeah,
eventually, but that scene was like, oh fuck, that's like,
yeah,
well,
yeah.
like,
Whereas
'cause it
I
really comes out
never
of,
had that.
Okay.
especially for the people who would have seen this originally and had no idea what it was about. I think
Yeah,
it would have just been like
yeah.
really
No,
fucking
no,
scary.
that
Yeah,
is definitely most people's experiences with it,
yeah,
not mine. Even when I
Okay.
first saw it, but we'll get to
Okay.
that. But it's fascinating because I was really interested to see because you're both so different in your relation to me, I suppose, in terms of how we
Right.
relate to viewing. So I kind of
Mhm.
know how to deal with you and how to deal, but you're both kind of a piece of this.
In that, yeah, yeah.
And
I thought
it's,
it was a very effective jump
yeah,
scare.
and it's
yeah. I
just,
know
yeah,
it's
it's not my experience at all. So it's kind of, and I accept it is me as well in this case. It's not, everyone else is wrong about Star Wars. I'm right about
This is
this.
because there's
But
someone
in
tied up
terms
in a
of this,
bag in your room at all times, Clive. So you're
yeah,
just in your,
this
you're
is true.
like,
These
oh yeah, of
boxes are
course.
always moving slightly. Um,
yeah,
but in terms of this, I realize it is everyone else is onto something, and I don't get it. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, yeah. Well, I will say that scene is not in the book.
Okay.
So
There's, I
actually,
mean, there's
they
another
don't
thing
have
that
those types of scenes. You don't
Maybe
ever
I'd like
see
the book.
her.
it's
Uh,
threaded. It's threaded quite early, actually, though, that
yeah.
her resume is bullshit, right? And that
Mhm.
like so quite early on, even before any of this comes up, that like, oh, she says she worked here, but actually we looked into it and we can't find any evidence that she worked there. Or she said
Yeah.
she did this, and so right away there are
The
some red
hints. Yeah.
flags
Yeah.
from the very
And also
beginning.
like, oh, she was dating this guy, but now or now
Disappeared.
he's disappeared, and like her agent can't get in touch with them. Like there's these kind of very, very kind of subtle hints that maybe something is going on, but he's like just like obsessed with her. He can't hear it. He's
Okay,
so
here's a question then before we
yeah.
continue. Speaking of subtlety, because I'm quite interested now that we're onto it, we might as well deal with it. When he goes to the ballet school,
Hmm.
and Renji Ishibashi, who's the brother in real life of our lead, by the way, Ryo Ishibashi, the
Oh,
guy at
interesting.
the
Oh, I didn't know
piano
that.
with the feet
Hmm.
and everything.
Hmm.
Did you not think that the film immediately jumped the shark at that point?
Yeah,
Did
I
not
do think
just
that
become
scene was
laughable.
a bit, yeah. And I think most people think that scene kind of stands out as being a bit yeah, a bit of like a tall nail that
So how were
needs
they
to be
able
hammered
to
down a little
forget?
bit. So
Well, my point is, how were you able to like pretend that didn't happen then and go with the rest of the film? Because it's such
I
a
think
stupid,
I was
fucking
already bought into it at that point that I was kind of like forgiving of that scene. So
interesting. Interesting.
mhm.
But yeah, I
Nick,
see what you're saying. No, yes, I think you're right. It does veer into the risible a little bit there, and it's, but then the
But I
effective
only
gross,
noticed that this time, to be honest.
the effective grossness of what comes later on, I think it still pulls you back in, like for me.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, and yeah. Anyway, so anyway, after that, he sort of like tries to track her down, finds a
It's a
bunch
bit
of
of a
like
detective story at this point,
yeah,
right?
to become a detective because she's disappeared and he can't find her, so he's trying to find her. He's going to different places. He goes to like the bar where she said she works, and it's been
Yeah.
closed down for like a year, and the owner was like horribly murdered but then there are extra body parts there, and so right, and
And he has visions of that as well, right?
and
Yes. Like,
he's starting to see visions, and right at kind of like the last third of the movie starts tends to be a little bit less linear, and there's a little bit more kind of like almost dream sequences, or kind of like fever dreams, or or like like you're not sure if you're actually seeing what's happening or what he's imagining happening or what she's imagining happening, or so it becomes
right.
a little bit less
There's a scene that
realistic.
I found more disconcerting than almost any of the other stuff, and it's really simple. It's when he's having the argument with the friend that kind of set up the whole audition, and his friend is basically telling him like, "You're pathetic, like get over it," like. And something about the way that's cut, I think it's breaking that whatever that rule is that you're not supposed to break in cinema, where you're cutting, because it's really strange, like the way it's edited together. Like it feels like they're shifting in the room in some awkward way, and I don't know why, but something about that scene I thought that was really well done. It amps up the tension. It starts to make me think: is this real, or has he gone mad?
Yeah,
And it's a simple scene of them having dialogue, but
right.
something about the editing.
That's
Yeah.
fascinating.
And so he's also got
Uh,
he
you
he's also
might be
got
right, but yeah, yeah.
he's also got these kind of scenes where he's actually in the apartment seeing the guys in the so there's like one of like I guess what must be a famous scene where he's in the scene and the guy who's in the bag has gotten
Uh,
out, and then she like vomits into a dog dish, and then this
Yeah.
guy comes out
that
and
was a tough watch for
drinks.
me.
Yeah, that was
I
yeah,
didn't
hard
watch
one.
it because
Yeah,
I had also eaten an edible. I had a
yeah,
gum,
yeah, it was like right
and
before dinner, so
that was not a good scene for me. I was hypersensitive. Yeah, the
But
last
again,
20
for
minutes
me,
of the movie,
that's
don't watch that
a
film.
perfect example of because I have a thing with Mike Takashi, whereas I like some of his films and I dislike some of his other films.
Mhm.
It's very up and down, and
Hmm.
sometimes he's just a little prankster schoolboy who likes trolling the audience.
Hmm.
And for
Mhm.
me, this largely is that.
Hmm.
Whereas some of his other films kind of work on a different level. They're still trolling you, but
Hmm.
they work. And Audition for me has never worked.
Mhm.
Um, but there was a very specific reason I want let Ron finish up the
Hmm.
So I
yeah
haven't finished the summary
yeah
yet. So anyway, anyway, so he still can't find her, and then he's sort of anyway, so you see from her point of view at one point, her like breaking into his house, but you don't know it's her yet, but there's like a point of view shot that where someone breaking into his house,
bye
and
bye
then
doggy.
yeah, and then the dog, and yeah, so and
I have
then
to say it's one of those films as well. Whenever you're watching this film for the first time or the second time, as soon as you see that little dog, you know that dog's gonna
dog's gonna
meet us
We're
die.
at
in
Yeah,
the end.
fatal attraction territory
yeah,
for sure.
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
The rabbit is getting boiled.
The
only
dog
reason
happened a
it's
little
not
different in the
upsetting,
book too, actually.
huh?
The dog happened a little different in the book too.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. The
Yeah.
only reason it's not upsetting is because when you do see the dead dog, it looks a bit kind of cartoonish, and
Mm.
so you're not too
Yeah.
upset because it,
Mhm.
It's
you're like,
just,
oh, okay, yeah, there we go.
yeah. So anyway, so he comes in and she's there waiting for him, and then anyway, so that then spoilers, here's the end. Turns out that she's a psycho and proceeds to torture him. She kind of like um injects him with like a paralysis agent of some kind. Yeah, kitty, 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 kitty. And then
Jeez.
puts in these acupuncture needles all over his body. Kitty, 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 kitty. And then jumps on the needles, pushing them in further and stuff. And anyway, and then cuts off one of his feet, and
Mhm.
then trying to cut off his other foot when his son comes home, and then she chases the son, tries to kill him, and ends up
Almost comedically getting booted down the stairs. That
yeah,
scene,
yeah,
Yeah,
that did make me laugh for some
yeah.
reason. Just the
That
shot of her flying backwards.
yeah,
it's funny as well.
and
Some
then
critic very famously said of this film, it's a film about someone having their foot cut off. And I think they might
Yeah.
actually be right about that. Essentially, it is just a film about someone getting their cut. It all builds up to that,
To
really.
that. Yeah, yeah. And apparently he was supposedly Mike was absolutely giddy while filming that scene. Apparently he
Yeah,
was
I can
like
see that.
giggling to himself and just out of
Huffing his
control,
own farts.
pretty much.
Yeah.
Yes. Although
yeah,
the actual piano wire, whatever saw wires, it's effectively gross. I mean, it's interesting.
Oh,
It kind of
all that
it,
stuff, the effects stuff and all that
yeah,
is first class. There's nothing out of step in this film in terms of the way it's pulled off, production values, and the acting is also extremely good across the board. Everything like that is absolutely top notch. My problem with it is more just this is a film, just it's about absolutely nothing at all, right? Like it seems like such a I don't understand. I don't and don't get me wrong, I'm not I understand. For lots of people, I don't know about you two, for this film, for a lot of people, this film is deeply like disturbing and effective, and it really gets under their skin. And I don't understand it. And it's not, don't get me wrong, it's not a Terrifier thing. That's a different thing. I don't hate Audition.
Mhm.
Terrifier, I mean, to paraphrase Half Man, Half Biscuit, every time a bell rings, I hate Terrifier a little bit more, right? But um, so it's not that. I don't hate Audition. It's okay, but I've never. So this is my kind of mea culpa thing with this. So
Mhm.
this game comes out in 99 2000, right? I'm in Japan. I'm new in Japan, and the whole new cult boom where Japan was the coolest cinema in the world came from Japan at that point, right? It was the
Mhm.
cult epicenter of the world. And I'd seen some of the things, I'd seen some of Miki Takashi films like Fudo, for example, which I loved
Mhm.
back in the
Yep.
UK. And then I was here. But the thing is, it's pre-internet, broadband, it's pre-streaming. So and because it's a hotbed, these things are being picked up immediately from film festivals. So Audition wasn't long from playing in Japan, is playing around the world with subtitles. But the thing is, in Japan, it doesn't have the subtitles. And
Mhm.
I've only just arrived here. And the
Mhm.
idea of importing DVDs with subtitles, it's just expensive. So a lot of films at that time I watched with my good lady wife, very kindly translating for me, right? So I
Mhm.
watched a lot of films from that period, um, renting the VHS. I rented this
Paraphrased.
VHS. Huh?
Paraphrased.
Yeah,
You watched
watching
this.
and stop, and the wife would say what's happening. Watch, and to be fair, some of those films actually, some of it because her English is very good. I think her translations are still better than some of the legit subs
Mhm.
for some of the films that but the thing it does do though is if it's a very carefully calibrated film in terms of like timing and shot and that goes out the window,
Mm.
right? But the thing is at the time, and I was starting to write reviews and stuff as well, I I was able to keep that in mind. Like I was like, okay, I understand that I'm watching this a 2 hour film, because this is a long film as well. It's too long,
Mm.
2 hours, but
Mm.
would take
Mhm.
4 hours, for instance, to watch, right? And you
Right.
might be destroying some of the, catch and release tension and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I
Mm.
kept this in when I was ready. But the thing with Audition, most other reviews of that time of films I watched in this fashion, I stand by it. It's fine. It's not a problem. But with Audition, I always thought the parts before it went batshit crazy, it overextended itself. It took too long to get there. So by the time it got there, I found it quite boring, to be honest, first time I watched it. But because everyone else in the world fucking loved it, it
Mhm.
preyed on me in my mind. It's in my review is in print, it's in the book, and like lots of other reviews from that time. And that's fine. Most of them I stand by. But Audition, I was always like, maybe this might be the one, because everyone seems to absolutely love it. So when Ron chose it, I was like, oh, awesome. Because I wouldn't
Mhm.
I'm glad he forced me to rewatch it, because this was my
Mhm.
chance. Like, okay, now we will watch Audition in real time. And I turned all the lights
Mhm.
off and I concentrated it. And I thought, this is the time it works. And it didn't. I still
Mhm.
think almost exactly the same. It's not, it doesn't. And again, I understand it works. It works maybe for the two of you, it works for other people. It really gets under people's skin, this film. But for me, it just didn't at all. It's not terrible, but after about an hour, I'm like, come on, let's get on. And it's nothing remarkable happens in this film to me at all. Nothing that I've never seen in another film. Nothing that it's okay. And then, especially when it gets into the whole reality versus is that stuff. It's not. I don't feel there's any through line. There's no profundity. It doesn't make you think, oh yes, maybe. It only a little bit makes you think Ishibashi Ryo's character is a buffoon, a middle-aged man who's gone trying to find some kind of wish fulfillment, and he's got what he's deserved in the case of having
Mhm.
unearthed this cycle. Because of course, you're a middle-aged man looking for this pristine virgin girl
Mhm.
who's gonna just. Of course, you're gonna unearth a psycho. That's unrealistic. That's what you're gonna get. So I understand that. However, I think, and again, I will defer to Ron here. I think that in the book, I don't think Mika Takashi or his screenwriter gives a fuck about that. I just think someone came to him with a screenplay based on this book that which he hadn't read, and he thought, "Oh, cool! There's a bit where someone saw someone's foot off, and I can play these dynamics." I don't think there's any, and I love other Mika Takashi films. Don't get me wrong, but he's not a director, or he wasn't then. He might be now. I don't know. He's not a director of great profundity, but he does make cool cult films now and again. This, for me, isn't one of them. Sorry, I babbled on a bit there, but
No,
I felt a bit
right.
strongly about them. Yeah.
Mm.
Does any
How
of
about
that
you for your
resonate at
first one?
all, or was it just a different film you saw?
Yeah, I had totally different experience. How about you, Nick?
I'm kind of between, I think.
Well, let's go with Ron then, seeing as he's
Yeah,
further
yeah,
away, and then we will have
yeah,
you as the mediator.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, when I finished the movie, I would I was I would say it was pretty close to being what I would consider like a masterpiece. It was
Wow.
I thought it was like I was totally like floored by this movie. Like
Did
I
it
was
freak you out? Was it
like
scary? Was it like,
well, there were jump scares that I wasn't expecting, and certainly scenes that I didn't expect. It definitely freaked me out more than I expected it to, and not in the way that it's like oh, it's like, but it was just like oh, I'm so terrified by this movie. Like, but at the same time, it was stuff that I wasn't expecting to happen, and they did it quite well, I thought.
it
You
got
know,
under your
and
skin, right? It got under your skin.
it got under my skin. Yes, I
Yeah,
would
that's
say
what I'm
that.
saying. A lot of people,
Yeah,
this film
and it just
does
did.
get
Yeah,
under the
so
skin. It has to be
and
said.
even though I knew it was happening, I what was coming, I was prepared for it. I was still like, wow, this is really. I thought it was really effectively done, and especially when it got into like the ending part where it was like you're not sure what the reality stuff. I love that stuff. I thought it was
Wow.
really well done.
Wow.
I
And
thought it
you
was
ate
really.
In
I thought it was
general, you dislike ambiguity as well.
yeah,
So
yeah,
for you
but
to say that is
in
quite
this
a thing.
case,
Yeah.
exactly, which is why it stood out so much for me because after I was like, I just like it stayed with me for days. And as soon
Wow.
as I turned it off, I wanted to watch it again, and
Wow.
I immediately I looked it up and I was like, I need to read this book, and I immediately went and I downloaded the book and I read it like the next day. What like my whole next day was just me reading the book.
Do
So
you
I
recommend I
was
read the
like,
book, Ron?
what? Yeah,
You
I think so.
okay.
Yeah. Well, so anyway, just a quick summary of the book. It's, I mean, most of the plot points are still there. All of the like the needle part is not there. Basically, it's quite more. It's very kind of straight ahead, kind of. You think that this one is not nuanced or subtle. The book is even less so. It's very like this is what's happening. This is she's doing this because her dad did this and because it was like it's very there's no guesswork at all basically and
Okay.
it's very kind of like straight ahead and yeah it's a little bit I mean it's still an interesting read but it was really like uh, it was a lot like I don't know I much preferred
So the screenplay
the
obfuscates the kind of
yes. Yeah,
backstory
because
and,
you're kind
and
of like you're not
motive
really
more.
sure in the movie why she's doing it. You kind of have ideas, like the kind of the jumping the shark scene with like the guy in the ballet.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's not in the book, but you assume that it's something to do with like the feet and stuff like and so and obviously she's got some sort of hang up with feet, but you're not really sure it's something to do with him. Who is he? And but in the book, it's sort of like yeah, this happened and this happened, this happened, and this is why she's like this, and so it's
Okay.
very it's a lot more kind of like yeah
Laid
there's
out.
no
Right.
yeah it's very laid out and this is an ABC kind of thing so it was still okay but I much preferred um the obfuscation I think whatever I think that I
Okay.
preferred like I preferred the guesswork more in the movie and I thought I mean even like the scene where he's like watching the guy with like the dog dish and stuff like that it was like for a second like I couldn't even be sure if the guy in the bag was him and the whole thing was a fever dream that he's the guy in the bag the whole time and because you don't really see the guy's face very
Hmm.
much I thought maybe he was the guy in the bag and the whole thing was sort of being played out in his head as he's in this bag the whole time and I thought that would be that
That's
would be like
that would have been a good
that
twist.
yeah that would have been a twist and it didn't really necessarily turn out that way but it did not turn out that way either so you don't
Right.
really know because
Yeah, there's
so
no
it still could
definite
have been
ending, right? There's no definite
yeah,
ending.
yeah. So yeah. So anyway, it was yeah, I went like to the top of my list of like some of the movies that like really affected me and I
Wow.
immediately went it's like told my wife I was like we gotta watch this movie. I want you to see this
Wow.
movie.
I will
Wow.
not be doing that.
Yeah.
This is fascinating just because yeah, and a lot of people have had the
Yeah.
same reaction.
It was the totally
This is
opposite of what you said. Yeah, I just
yeah,
like I
yeah.
didn't, and I'll be fair. I didn't expect to have this reaction.
No,
I
I
thought it was
wouldn't
just
have
gonna be
expected you to.
it's like
I
oh, okay, yeah, it's a fine. I knew what I was getting. Okay, it was pretty good, but like it really stayed with me. Like
wow.
for days afterwards, I would still go over this movie in my head. So anyway, so
So Nick, what's your take on all this? Are you the voice of reason?
I don't know, no, because everyone's response to things is so personal, right?
hmm.
So let's foreground that right away. Um,
I resemble that remark.
so I, I feel like horror is like guys, it's a really interesting thing because I think it's really subjective. I fell in love with horror as a teenager. I was really bothered by it as a little kid. I remember watching the trailer for the From Beyond at the beginning of something I'd rented from like the video shop and being really upset, like being like,
I tell
"What the
you what
fuck
that
was
might
that?"
have been. This might be wrong because it would have been
Okay.
on loads of different tips. But I remember seeing it, oddly enough, around a neighbour's house,
Hmm.
and I'd been invited to see the very non-horror Goldie Hawn vehicle Wildcats. Remember that?
Okay.
Where she was
Yes,
the
vaguely.
manager of an American football
did,
team or something?
did Takashi Miike direct that?
Yeah, I
No,
believe he did, yes.
Did he?
No.
no, but what I'm saying, the trailer for From Beyond played
Oh, okay.
on that because I remember because
Yeah,
I
I
was
think
very excited to
it
see
was
it.
weirdly on a lot of VHS tapes it maybe shouldn't have been on.
Right.
Because you remember like, the days of VHS where they'd have like 4 or 5 trailers before the film, right? So
Right.
anyway, yeah, I so then as a kind of a teenager, I got really excited about horror, but I realize now very much fantasy based. Like I liked zombies and monsters and demons and ghosts and that stuff, and things that are very grounded in some ways in like things that are legit, like so serial killer movies or what becomes like torture porn
Torture
later
porn.
on is stuff that didn't appeal to me then, and now I'm really too old for it, I feel like. And so like if I'd seen this then, I think my response might have been closer to yours, Ron. I think if I'd seen this in 1999, I might have been, and also with the other Takashi Miike's, who I did like, as I mentioned Fudo, which was great, and I really like the Dead or Alive films. Particularly, was the one that you're talking about, Clive, the one where they grow angel wings at a certain point?
No, that's I think that might be the second or the third one.
Okay, because that's also a bizarre moment in a film where you're like, what's
Right.
just happened? So what happens in the one you were talking about?
Well, I don't know if I want to spoil it because I don't know if
Okay,
I
never mind.
or Ron
So
mentioned, but Dead
yeah,
Okay.
this is I think my first Takashi Miike movie. So what would you recommend other than this
Oh,
one?
I
well,
really liked Dead or
going
Alive.
by your theme of if you're looking for a film that, because the thing with this film switches genres in the last third, right? But the thing with Alfie Darling was it's the very last scene.
Yeah, it was
Yeah. So if you want another film that absolutely in the last scene just goes, what the holy fuck? That's Dead or Alive Hanzaisha, which Miike Takashi made the same year as this, actually, I think.
So
That's
which Dead or Alive is that? Is that
level.
Dead or Alive?
how
Is
many
that
Dead or
Dead or
Alives are there?
There
Huh?
was three, right? There was three of them, right?
Yeah, Dead or Alive Hanzaisha, Dead or Alive 2, Dead or Alive 3. I don't remember what the subtitles are for them, but this one is 99.
Okay. And was it the original? Was it
Yeah,
the first Dead or Alive? Yes, yeah.
yeah,
So that's the one. Yeah, I agree. That's
yeah,
the one to go to next.
Dead or Alive.
Dead or
yeah.
Alive, yeah.
Yeah, it might
The
just be
original.
called Dead or Alive in English. I can't
I
remember.
think it is in English. I think it's just
Yeah.
called Dead or Alive, yeah. So anyway, so it's kind of hard for me to really like on the one hand, actually for some reason I had forgotten that this was a Miike film, and I was about 30 minutes in or 40 minutes in, I was like, this is really well made. Like this is quite um
It's not as
sophisticated.
anarchic as a Miike Takashi film of the era.
No. So then when I was like, who did direct this? I looked up, I was like, oh shit, it's Miike. And then I thought this doesn't feel like the Miike that I know. This doesn't feel like the Dead or Alive Miike or the Fudo Miike or even the Zebra Man, whichever pronunciation you
Yeah.
prefer.
Or Ichi the Killer.
Or oh yes, of course, Ichi the Kid. Fuck me, that thing's mad. Yeah, so it didn't feel like that. It felt more measured. It felt more, in some ways, more sophisticated. That first half, and then the second half, we start getting into more, I guess, stuff that I'm like, okay, yes, this is the Miike I'm more familiar with, right? The kind of extreme, gross out stuff. But I think because it lacked any kind of fancy element. Yeah, it did get under my skin. So I'm gonna say, but I think is I didn't love that. I think it got under Ron's skin, and Ron was like, yeah, and I got under my skin. I was like, this is kind of sad and gross and depressing.
Yeah.
And then, and then reading about it a little bit, I was interested to see that there's really conflicting opinions over whether this should be viewed as a feminist film or an anti-feminist film.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Is this more Misery and Fatal Attraction, which I think could be argued are fairly misogynistic? Or is this a redemption? Is this a girl who's been screwed around and like she's getting her own back on the men who screwed her around? And I think I agree with Clive. I don't think Miike is smart enough to have made a choice. I think in this film, and maybe the book gives you a little more to be like, yeah, this guy's, because he is a dick, right? What he's done is a dickish move.
Yeah.
He deserved to have his foot
Yeah.
But
cut off.
I think,
And more importantly, does his kid deserve to be like maced and possibly get cut up as well, which seems to be
well,
where
yeah, I mean that's again clearly spelled out in the book, which is that it's like she's like, you have to love only me. And then when she finds out he's got a son, and that's the thing is that when they're at the hotel together, he wakes up the next morning, he's been drugged, and he realizes, did I tell her about my son? I can't remember. And so that was the thing is that he's told her about the son, and then she's immediately drugged him and then disappeared. And because that means that he loves someone else other than her. So it's really like, oh well, so then she goes to kill them both because she doesn't want, he lied to her, and then the son is like the other object of affection, which is
If you're
she a
right.
sympathetic. Sorry, go ahead. I was just is she a sympathetic? Is she a more sympathetic monster? Because I think the film, it's really
not
unclear.
really.
that we're supposed
Yeah,
to
not
have
really.
any
I think
sympathy
I
for.
I think it's more ambiguous in the film, which I like better because yeah, I think the book is really just
Here's a question
like I think you're supposed to feel bad for him that
is
Okay,
he
this
it's
is
more
this
misery.
I
is
think
this
so.
in
Yeah.
the book or is it original to the screenplay? Because I think this was quite a pivotal scene, even though again I think it's more from the screenwriter's point of view, and I think Miki Takahashi fucked it up because he doesn't care. But at least from the screenplay point of view, whenever there's a book, there's a scene where the son brings home a girl, right? That
Mm,
he's kind of interested in. And it's
mhm.
quite an interesting scene. It's one of the more interesting scenes in the film because it turns out that she's eaten his supper, right? And she
Yeah.
didn't know because the son said, "Oh, can we eat your supper, or whatever." And her immediate response is, "Oh, I'm so sorry. Can I cook
Mm.
something for you?" And she's like super kind of obedient and like well behaved and doing all the things you would expect to be the right thing to say. And then as the fathers leave the room, he's like, thumbs up to the bottom. You chose a
Uh-huh.
good one. You chose a good. And I'm wondering, is that in the book or is that in this just in this?
I don't remember it being I don't think so. I don't
But
think
Okay.
regardless, again, I think the screenplay might be. I'm wondering if the
but
screenwriter might have been
yeah.
slightly irritated by what Miki Takahashi did at the end of the day because, like, I think Miki Takahashi is because he was hot at the time and he would have
Mhm.
been offered. Oh, Miki Takahashi, he makes those extreme films, right? So he got offered this, and then he made the film he wanted to make, and
Mhm.
maybe almost totally just steamrolled any of that potential. And I think that's why the film is. And people are saying, "Is it a feminist or not?" It's because it's neither. Because Miki Takahashi doesn't give a fuck about
Yeah,
that.
not good at that.
Yeah,
But maybe that's worthwhile in as much as like we're talking about it, right? And I would imagine people
yeah,
are still
and it
talking
worked for
about it.
Ron,
Yeah,
And
right?
that
And it works for lots of other people. It
yeah.
works. Clearly, it works.
and it, and yeah, and as a horror film, I think it does because it's a slow burn and I mean maybe yeah, maybe the tricks didn't work for you, Clive, but I think most audience members were disconcerted and felt
Ron's the guy it worked for.
mm,
It worked as a horror film, as a shock film. Did it
mm.
work for you on another level? Did you did you think it was deeper than that in some way? Do you think it had any kind of message in
Um,
it was on
yeah, I mean,
or like
I think, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like when I was thinking about that afterwards, because I was looking at the book and I was looking at same thing, which is Nick was saying is it feminist or anti-feminist kind of thing, and I was kind of reflecting on it, and yeah, I'm not sure, and I think it's probably that I'm just not smart enough to know which one it is, but for the most part, I liked how it was ambiguous that you could decide what it was for yourself, right? I think it could be feminist if you want it to be, and it could be anti-feminist if you want it to be
but do
that
you think
too,
it's
right?
ambiguous or do you think it's just confused?
I think either way it plays to his favor, right? So it doesn't really matter if it was on purpose or not, but that's the way it ended up, and then he can kind of take credit for it, whether he
So
intended
even
it or
if
not.
it's
Yeah, it's
accidental, it's at the end of the day it works.
Yeah,
yeah,
I
Right,
think it works the way it
right.
is.
it
Yeah.
supports.
I think the book is less ambiguous, so it's a little bit more like, oh, this is kind of like, oh, she's a psycho. Don't you feel bad for this
Okay.
guy? Kind of thing, right? It's more that a little bit. So which is a little I think that's why I like the movie a little bit better because it wasn't necessarily that. Yeah, I mean it was more like oh, look, she had such a bad childhood. Don't you feel bad for her? Oh, but now she's such a bad person, right? Kind of thing, right? So it's just trying to spell out her kind of like psychopathy, whereas this one is sort of like it's left kind of a little more to your imagination, right? So, and that's why I think I was accepting of the kind of the jumping the shark piano playing scene a
Mm,
little more because again it could just be his in his mind, right? So
right.
it's why
Yes.
it didn't struck me as out of place too much because it wasn't because I mean, it wasn't so out of place that it wasn't also a guy drinking someone's vomit out of a dog dish, right? So
Yeah, in fact, whether
it's
any of that stuff actually happens is very much open. Like you're
yeah.
right.
So I mean,
At times,
why would he even be there to see that, right?
it
So there's
becomes
no
a
reason.
fever. It
So
becomes like a
I mean,
fever dream.
it's got to be a fever dream because he's in the apartment. He doesn't go to her house, right? He doesn't even know
Yeah.
where she lives. So that's why I figure it's got to be like a little bit more stuff in his head, and that's why I thought maybe he's the guy in the bag the whole time, right? Which I thought would have been kind of cool, and he's like watching himself drink the puke, and so though. But
I wonder how these things work. Like because I'm unlikely to watch it again, to be honest. I wonder I wonder if it's like going to be like the Sixth Sense, like once you know. But as you used to, like
yeah,
people kind of maybe knew the trick anyway. In a way, they knew that they were getting something that was a bit of a bait and switch. But I wonder to what degree does it still work if you know exactly where it's going. Maybe it does. I don't know.
Hmm.
But I'm unlikely to find out. I don't think
Like
I
you
want to
said,
watch
they
it
are.
again.
Did you say, Ron, that they are actually making it again? They're going back to the source
yeah,
material
they're remaking it.
in
Um,
Japan, or
uh,
is it a Hollywood thing, or
no,
somewhere?
I think they're doing an I think they're doing an American one. I think,
Oh,
but they're adapting the book closer to the book, is what they've said.
Okay.
okay. Hmm.
If
Yeah,
that's
is what
not
I said.
awful, I'm going to be surprised.
Yep. Yes.
That
Yeah,
sounds
it's
terrible.
Yeah.
it's
Hmm.
written directed by Christian Kaftrup.
Never heard of him.
What else have
Yeah,
they done? Because I bet they've
uh,
done one other indie horror that was
he's
indie.
Danish. He did
Ah,
something
yeah.
called Speak No Evil a couple years
Ah,
ago.
yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. They remade that with what's his face, the Scottish actor from Filth, McAvoy.
Oh, James
Okay.
McAvoy, yeah.
Yeah, they remade
Hmm.
that with James McAvoy. I've not seen either, but apparently both are quite. But that makes sense. That's classic Hollywood, right? Oh, that Danish, that non-American guy who made a really interesting film in their own language. Let's bring them to Hollywood and let them remake
You
something
make a Japanese film, yeah.
and
Yeah.
totally hobble them from the beginning.
Yeah.
It's bound
I
to
think
be
that's probably what's gonna happen,
great.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he's apparently doing so in the book also that it's kind of implied that she's cut other people's feet off. That it's like a serial foot
Yeah.
cutter. And
Well,
so at
that's
the
kind of in
very
the film as well, a little bit. Like there's extra
yeah, but it's
parts.
well, that's like there's one scene where like in their first date, when the first meeting, when he meets her, they're at a hotel, and this kid comes in a wheelchair with someone, and they're laughing, and then he sees her and he gets really, really scared, and then wheels off somewhere. So but it's unclear why he recognized her or that she cut like a kid's feet off, or like I don't know. It's very so that's a little bit unclear, but
Yeah. See,
that's in the book.
I don't think I will read the book now because
Yeah.
I was ambivalent, but the more I talk about it, the less I like the film.
Hmm.
So I think I might stay clear of the book. I
Yeah,
think it'll just go
fair
down
enough.
in my estimation.
Fair
Um,
enough.
but no, absolutely fascinating though that it can have such
A
um
different
yeah, different
yeah.
reactions to something which, as films go, isn't necessarily the most kind of it's a relatively straightforward film. It's not like
Hmm.
a ooh,
Yeah.
ooh, make of it what
Yeah.
you will. It's a crazy head trip
Hmm.
film, but somehow it's yeah,
I think it does support multiple readings,
Yeah.
which I guess is a sign of good art, or can be a
Sure.
sign of good art.
well, like
But
I said, it's not Terrifier. For that, we should be thankful.
I have not seen, so I have no context for
Keep
that.
up the
But
good work, Nick.
of
Every
not
time the
seeing
bell
Terrifier.
rings. Right. So let's
We
get on.
should
Okay.
crack on though. So yeah.
Thanks, Nick, for coming on.
Thanks for
Always a
coming by.
pleasure.
Cheers. Yep.
And
Yeah.
kitty kitty kitty
What?
kitty 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 kitty.
Ah,
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, and if you're feeling lonely, gents, maybe don't organize a tissue of lies in order to attract a woman. Maybe just be straightforward, um,
Eh.
yeah.
or not.
No, I
It's,
disagree. Yeah, just
yeah.
don't choose a serial killer.
Okay, there we
Yeah.
go.
So let's do Mr. Jim 2, and we'll have auditions so I can we, we
Yes,
can find we can find
I
find
shall
a friend of
find
a
a
friend of
young,
wife.
ingenue.